up at like 8 o'clock for work, and my hair is like an absolute mess. So it's just like, it's so much easier to just throw a beanie on and not worry about it. And then our main like producer constantly wears beanies and has glasses and a beard, so it just looks like I am just cosplaying as him on a daily basis.
I love that. Alright, let's do that. Happy Ouija Wednesday, everybody. I'm here with
Adam Murray.
Adam Murray.
Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to say my name or not. Hello.
Sorry. Swipe up, you're live on Twitch right now.
Yes, come.
Yay.
I have a lot of ghost stories.
Yes, he
does. That was a hard zoom in. Which chat should I look at? The stream chat up top or both?
Yeah, so top one is Twitch, bottom one is YouTube.
Okay. I'm on Nerdist News every now and again, so I can handle reading chat. Yeah, ATOM _. That's my dad.
Is your dad in California?
No, they're in New Jersey. Yeah, all the family. Literally, my entire family is in New Jersey. There's no one. I am the first person to move across the country from my family. Yeah.
The only person that ever has? Or
yeah, I mean, in my immediate family, both my sisters live 5 minutes from my parents. Yeah.
I didn't know you had sisters.
2 older sisters.
Oh.
I'm the youngest. Yeah, both of them live 5 minutes from my parents, and one has one child, a son, my nephew Liam, who's the oldest of them, and then my other sister has 2 boys. Yeah, 2 boys and a girl. I was like, how many kids does she have?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Ben and Luke. Yeah, Ben.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to
Hi.
Ouija Wednesday. I'm Sapphire, and I'm joined today by my bud, Adam Murray.
Hello.
Say hello.
Hi, how are you?
Just like real brief, like what's your deal, Adam? Who are you? What do you do?
I am I guess indie filmmaker and producer, mainly director. I'm currently working for Legendary Digital, doing stuff for them as a producer and editor, on camera stuff. And then we met through animation. Is how you and I met. We met on I think
Mr. Pickles.
Mr.
It was the
Pickles.
pilot.
It was the pilot, Mr. Pickles, is where we met. And I fell into animation kind of ass backwards for like for a handful of years because I moved out here with a film degree and all that, and had been working on set, doing like every job on set for the first few months out here and doing freelance stuff. And then my roommate, Sean Glaze, who you've worked with.
Oh my God, yeah, I forgot you guys were roommates.
We were living together at the time. He was like, oh, there's the studio I'm at is looking for like cleanup animators. And I went, and that was the ADHD, like in the early days when they were still in a house.
Yeah.
In Los Feliz, when they were in like a house that I remember Maroon 5 used to own.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
The house that they like originally were set up in used to be owned by someone from Maroon 5 because there was like a giant, beautiful piano in the foyer, and then the shed in the back had been converted for like audio recording and studio recording. So that's where they did a lot of their VO sessions and their tracking sessions in the shed in the back. The animators, it was like 8 of us. It was me, Sean Glaze, Matt Marblow was there, who I think you might know. Yeah, you know Matt. And then there was another 4. Shano, which is the who plays in bands?
Sean Solomon.
Sean Solomon. He was there because he was kind of the one who made the look of ADHD in a sense. And then the writer's room and all the producers, everyone were upstairs.
Wow.
And then that's where I got started, and then I kind of floated through animation for a handful of years, and then I got offered a job running a production team for a company that had no end to it. It was the Loot Crate team.
Yeah. Wait, when you said the company had no end to it?
Like there was no end period.
Oh.
Unlike the deal with freelancing and being an animator, and it's kind of like you're there for 6 months or 8 weeks or whatever, and then they kind of just let you loose into the wild.
Yeah.
And then you're competing against your friends for jobs, which is an upsetting thing.
Mm-hmm. So glad I'm not doing that anymore.
That's what when I was like, my question in the interview was like, so when does this like end? And they were like, what?
What do
and
you
I was
mean?
like, I was like, no, like when's this wrap up? They're like, until we fire you or you quit. And I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah, I'm in.
I'm in. Cool. I don't have to worry about where my next paycheck is coming from after I work on a pilot for 8 weeks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you're not there anymore.
I'm not there anymore. I'm now producing and editing a lot of stuff for Nerdist for their YouTube channel and all that, and their Alpha channel, Project Alpha. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So their paywall, their VOD subscription service.
Do you know Whitney Moore?
Yes. Yeah. I met Whitney. Jesse was going out. Her fiance was going out the door as I was coming in, because now he works for
Prohibited.
Yeah, he works for Prohibited, that marijuana distribution service. Yeah, so that's who he works for. That's
awesome. Let's say hi to some people real quick before they hate me. Hi, Evelyn Souter. I remember you. Daisy Elizabeth, Naruto. You guys need easier usernames, because I never know how to freaking say any of this. Sophia Isabel, Sentient Orange 98, McLuna 92, Gryffindor, Gryffindork Twitch. That's cute. Do you want to read the YouTube ones?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of people saying quack, quack, quack. I'm guessing that it's just a duck bot or someone who is
there's
spamming.
The username is all quacks. And
the
then
username is all quack. Zoel?
Like Noel, but with
like
Z?
Noel, like Zoel Mina, who loves birds. Hi. Enrique Flores, hi. Ezekiel Mendez, hi. Nopoke, written
spelled very strangely,
spelled in Russian or whatever they call their language.
Yeah,
I don't know if they have like another name for it. Ro Carter, hello. Hello, duck person again. Clementine, an artist. Hey, what did I miss? Not much.
No. We literally just started.
I'm not that excited.
No. So the reason why I asked you on this show is because you're not only like a fan of like horror and spooky Duke stuff, but you also have a lot of really cool ghost stories.
Yes.
Some personal and some you just like know ghost stories.
Yeah. I don't have any real new ones, because Los Angeles is not. I mean, it's a haunted city, but like in like a commercial sense, like the Roosevelt or stuff like that, where it's like you see Marilyn Monroe's ghost in a mirror, but yeah, I grew up on the East Coast, which is the old, like one of the old. I grew up in New Jersey, in one of the oldest parts of the country, and so the East Coast, I think, in terms of hauntings, has a lot more on the rest of the country, just because it's so old.
Yeah.
And just a lot of bad, terrible things have happened and built up over the years. And then I went to one of the most haunted colleges on the East Coast, which just has a cartoonish level amount of like bad things that happen to it.
Oh, thanks for following. So there's sound effects when people follow and
subscribe. Oh, was it really? Okay. Yeah. I was like, oh, that's genuinely upsetting. No, so yeah, I've got a handful of scary stories, and I've enjoyed researching and finding out more about different hauntings and stuff like that. Like as a kid, I was always yeah, that's awful. I hate that.
This is how this is going.
Oh my gosh. Okay. No, so and like you said, I like horror movies and all that. I kind of floated towards that, not as much as a kid as I did as I got older, but yeah, I've had a lot of personal experiences and just learned a lot.
So what is your like theory about the paranormal? Because I know that there's like a lot of people who they may enjoy the stories, but they don't like believe them. Like, what is your personal take on everything? I like to believe in paranormal activity, but I also it's hard. It's a weird thing to say because I believe it fully, but also don't at the same time. Right.
Like, and I'm not a skeptic. Like, I work with people who 100% like, no, ghosts aren't real.
Right.
Like I work next to Kyle Hill, who runs Because Science. If you've ever seen that show, it was on Notorious, where he just breaks down everything scientifically, and he is a person who ghosts aren't real. Like if they were, we would know, like that kind of thing.
But like, cause see, that's wild to me, because I feel like, why aren't people's personal experiences that we share over the years, why isn't that enough?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I agree. There is a part of me that was like, well, if they were real, it wouldn't be on like Travel Channel with like a bunch of dudes like with like night vision cameras like yelling at each other like, oh,
come at me, go!
Do you see what happened? Like it would be on CNN. It's like, oh, by the way, God exists, and a cup flew like across the room, and we filmed all of it. Like, but it's I fully believe, but also look for things that can kind of explain it away,
right?
In a sense, because if not, then I would just be utterly terrified. I think on a constant basis of most things. I'm also like not the most religious person in the world. I went to Catholic school, and so that kind of
same.
You would agree, like. You come out of Catholic school, you're either like still rolling with it, or it kind of stamps it out of you pretty hard. And like, there's nothing wrong with religion. Like if as long as you're not using it to hurt people,
right? Like
you do you. But it's just it's a weird balance I try to find between it. Yeah.
Ooh, I had a burp coming on. Sorry. Oh man, wait, I had a question. So you said that you're not a religious person, but is your family?
Yes.
Everyone. Like, are you kind of like the outlier?
A little bit. I mean, my mom is a very religious person. She's an incredibly open-minded, tolerant, lovely person. And she's fantastic. And my oldest sister, teaches at a Catholic school. Teaches at the Catholic school that I went to. My nephew goes to that school. So they're religious, but they're not. They're all relaxed Catholics. Yeah. Like there's no fire and brimstone happening in our family. It's never anything like that. My dad's an Easter and Christmas kind of guy. But it's I am I guess the outlier. Yeah. I know. I think my mom every now and again she'll like, God bless you, like all that stuff. Just as an attempt, like, yep, keep it going, like.
Yeah.
But it's
okay.
Yeah.
Because the reason I asked is because, like, for me, I grew up in a family, like, I'm Filipino, and Philippines is very Catholic. And so everyone in my family is Catholic, and I went to Catholic school, was raised to be a good Catholic person, but I never really, like, felt like I connected with it. But this is the thing that kind of freaks me out, is like, okay, so my aunt's like, just her family, I feel like, and not really anyone else so much. Her family seems to be just, for some reason, so much more connected to like the spirit dimension, and it freaks me out because she's hella Catholic. I've never said hella. That was weird. I'm sorry. That was strange. So like, she's super, super, super Catholic. I hate how I have to like preface, but she's a great person. Like, no. Like, I'm like, she's
it's sad that that's where it's gotten to.
I know, but I'm like, sorry. Like, there's good Catholic people. Anyways, so she's like, just a very like devout Catholic person, and it freaks me out whenever she says things like, Sapphire, the most powerful thing that the devil does is make you believe that he doesn't exist. That freaks me out, because it's like, you're saying that, like, no matter what I do in my brain, I tell myself, like, you know, the devil doesn't exist. There's nothing like trying to like just take over my soul, whatever, that he still is freaking there. Yeah. Like, that's scary to think about. And I'm just like, oh my God, she like forgetting her mind. And like, she talks about all the time about how she sees spirits and stuff. And so I'm just like, I don't know. See, I grew up in a family where like that is the reality. Yeah. Like, the devil is real, angels are real, like all that stuff. So it's like, I don't know.
I feel like the belief in a devil and the belief in Satan is something that's more tied to, I guess, immigrant families and more immigrant families, non-white Christian families. I think, like, I mean, if you even look at Santeria, like everything that's worked into Santeria and the amount of different amalgamations of every religion that kind of comes together in that. And I think it is something that, I guess, better off white families don't really think about. I mean, like, you can go to anywhere in the South and I'm sure you'd run into some, like, impoverished white family who believe heavily in a battle between God and the devil that is constantly waging and, like, seeing sin in people.
Right.
But I don't know. I think there's something like, because I grew up in a fairly upper middle class white town.
Yeah.
And that was never a thing on anyone's tongue, was talking about the devil. Like, it was just never mentioned.
Yeah.
It was never there. And it was just like, even as a kid, like, I grew up Methodist. I went to Catholic school, and then getting to know people from different families, different backgrounds who were like second generation or anything like that, like, learning more about, like, their families, how that is more prominent in it. Yeah. It's super interesting. It's super, and I wish I knew, like, especially even in we live in Los Angeles, like, Hispanic families, Mexican families.
Same, yeah.
It is incredibly prevalent. And I think it has a lot to do with folklore in a sense. Because, like, my buddy Lawrence, who's a makeup artist, he's from San Antonio, and his family is second generation, I believe. And thank you. There was a noise.
Yes, there was. Oh my God! Hi, Ricky. Sorry.
Hi.
Just say hi.
Hi.
Thank you for the raid. I didn't put a special sound effect for that. That's why it did a weird little bell. Anyways, I'm sorry. Continue.
No. So I was talking to him, and the one thing I noticed when I moved out to Los Angeles and working, like, doing horror shorts and being around, like, horror communities in a sense, was I noticed that a large majority of it are younger Hispanic people, younger Mexican people. Like, if you go to Halloween Town in Burbank, the entire staff, they're all Mexican ladies in their 20s and 30s. We're all with the pinup hairstyles and, like, the spiderweb dresses. And I was like, why, like, is that a thing that's so...
Thank you.
That is so crazy.
Sorry.
I was like, why is that a thing that is so pervasive in Mexican culture? And he was like, well, a lot of the stories we grew up with as children are just scary to begin with.
Right.
And I don't know a lot about Filipino folklore or
I mean, it's the same.
Like, yeah, it's like it's a lot more. That's so creepy.
Thank you for hosting.
And so it was kind of like, it's just something we grew up with, and it's always there, which is why they kind of get accustomed to it. And it's kind of part of a lot of younger people's culture, like. Yeah. And so I feel like that's the same thing in. I mean, again, white people are boring. Is what I'm basically getting at.
I mean, well, here's the thing. Like, to me, like, all those stories that they tell, like, because everyone in my family has at least one or two ghost stories that they tell each other. And it's like, it's just, it's never been, like, a question of, like, whether or not this stuff is real. It's just always been, like, I grew up thinking it's real. So it's like, what's crazy to me is, like, why are certain families, like, why can they see these things more and then other families just absolutely nothing?
Yeah. I think it's also mentally being open to the idea. I think, again, like, because my family, I don't know if anyone's ever had any paranormal experiences or anything like that, because my parents don't watch horror movies. My mom hates blood. Right. Like, will refuse to watch a movie if there's blood in it. My sisters don't watch horror movies, really. Like, my dad, like, the scariest movie he's ever seen is, like, The Exorcist. And he grew up Catholic, so that movie really, like, freaked him out.
My mom, like, when she showed us that movie when we were, like, kind of young, and she was like, you know, the scariest thing about that movie is that it's real. Yeah. That it can actually happen. And I was like, oh my God. I better pray tonight, you know, like that kind of shit.
So my dad said he saw it and he slept with his lights on for, like, a whole weekend, like, and so it's. I think if you're more
Jesus Christ. I'm sorry.
open to it, I think if you're already at a state where you're like, not even if you believe in it, but if that's something that is on your mind that you've been surrounded by or, like, you're kind of familiar with in a sense, you're more likely to see those things. Or at least those things, the idea of, like like an intrusive thought in a sense.
Okay.
Like the idea of seeing a spirit can kind of enter your mind easier since you're already someone, like if you're someone like me who's like watches horror movies a bunch, researches serial killers a bunch, like the darkest parts of like society in our world, like I think it's easier I think your brain can make those jumps easier.
Right.
And like I forget who has like I forget what comedian had a joke. It's like, what's scary is like what you don't see. It's like it's like something. It's like what your brain is coming up with is probably not as scary as what's really there. It's like, no, I can come up with something pretty terrifying. If I hear a noise like in my living room, I'm pretty sure what's in my head is scarier than what it actually is.
True.
Yeah.
But then see, this is the thing though. You say that having an interest or belief to begin with makes you more susceptible. I believe the hell out of this shit and have never experienced anything. But and I know so many people who don't want this shit in their life and they keep seeing it.
Really?
So I think it's the opposite. I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah.
You guys have any thoughts on it?
I mean, my theory's out there. I think, because like I said, like if I hear something like a noise in the other room, it's like I could be, that's just like one of my neighbors coming home, or it could be just like a jawless woman just hovering in the living room, and just like I'm not gonna go out there and look.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Oh yeah, no, that's way scarier than just my neighbor's dog.
The other night, me and Elliot woke up. It was like, I don't know, in the middle of the night, like 3 or 4, and like the wall right next to my head, like on the bed, I hear. And we both look at each other. We're like, what the fuck is that? And then remember, there's raccoons that live in our walls. But it was just so, like, it freaked me out just because it seriously sounded like it wasn't
knocking.
like a, just uneven sounds. It was like someone was knocking on the
trying
wall.
to get through.
That freaked me out. But it was the raccoons, obviously. But I was like, is that raccoon knocking for our attention? Like, it freaked me out.
That's like, oh, that's a motorcycle.
Yep.
Okay. I was like, that's a new noise. That's like, I think I told you about the house I lived in Philly.
The house that knows your name.
The house that knows our name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell the story?
Okay.
Hey, everyone, shut up! I was gonna tell an awesome ghost story.
Turn your lights off.
Yeah, turn the lights off. Light a candle.
I have a handful of stories. So I went to school. I went to art school in Philadelphia, which is a very old city, full of bad things. And I lived in South Philly. I lived on 16th and Wharton Street, which is just, if you know Philadelphia at all, it's 3 blocks south of Washington, which is like a main road on Broad Street. And we were living in a row house that was 3 stories tall. It was
What's a row house?
Row house, if you ever seen like anything, like any shots of like Philadelphia or parts of like New York, a row house is like when houses are pretty much right next to each other. Like you're sharing a wall with
like
your
the
neighbor.
Opening of Full House.
Kind of, but not as expensive. But not as expensive as the Tanner household is.
Okay.
I don't know what
house.
Yeah, I don't know what Danny Tanner did for a living, but they lived a beautiful house. I'll bring out a picture.
Wait,
of it
wasn't
too.
he a morning talk show host?
Was he? Oh, he was.
Was he? Yeah. I don't know.
Oh, my dad also texted me. He said, we kept Satan out of your room. is what my dad just texted me. He's watching.
Oh, Dad.
He doesn't know how to work
Get
chat.
in the chat, Dad.
I don't think he knows how. But so we lived in a house, and it's been there for years. I'll show you our house later. And it's 3 stories tall, with a basement as well, which the basement itself was mostly like concrete and dirt.
Okay.
And then there was a hollow section of the floor that had like wood over it, which was always creepy.
Right.
And there was also a hospital bed, like a hospital bed frame in the basement when we moved in. And we just never were like, we're not moving this. We're not touching it.
Did it look old or was it new?
It looked old. Okay. It looked like at least the 70s.
Okay.
It was definitely been there for a while. It had been used.
Right.
And so I think it was like after the first year of living there, I'm just sitting in my room, and the way my room worked, I had the master bedroom, which I pulled out of a hat, and I had 2 big double doors that opened up, and I was on the 2nd floor, and then I could walk right out of my room right down the stairs, and my desk was facing bay windows, and so I'd have my back to the door, and I was working. It was like right before winter break, and I was alone in the house. At least I was like 99% sure I was alone in the house. And I'm working, and I hear someone say my name. And I lived with 3 women at the time. So I heard a female voice say my name, and I was like, oh. And it sounded like, I'm on the second floor, and it sounded like someone was in the kitchen and downstairs, and they thought I was in the next room. So it wasn't like a shout or anything. It was just like, oh, Adam, like if Elliot was in the other room trying to get you to come in and see something.
Yeah.
I go, well, that's weird. Go back to working. Hear it again. I walk out to the landing. I go, hello? Hello? Nothing. Go downstairs. Look around. Kitchen lights off. Living room lights on. No one's there. I go up to the 3rd floor. Hello? My roommate Max is not there. Anna's not there. Amanda and McDougal are not there. Who are my other roommates? No, I'm alone in the house. All right. I turn the light. So I had a switch for the landing light on the 2nd floor, like right outside my room. So I turned that on for when my roommates get home, so they don't have to go up the stairs in the dark. Close the doors, and I'm working. About a half hour passes, and above my door is like a little like window kind of like thing, like a little plate of glass where I could see out like the lights on the hallway. I turn around and look. About a half hour later, lights are off.
Did you remember when it happened?
About like a half hour after like I closed the doors and like left the light on. So I went back to work. I turn around, lights are off. Open the door. Hello? Still no one. Turn the lights back on. Turn the lights upstairs on. Search around. Lights in the kitchen still off. Lights in the living room are now off, which were on before when I went down and checked it before. I like kind of passed it up to nothing, and then like I keep hearing now vaguely now and again like someone say my name, like at least like in passing, like if I'm leaving the house or something, I'll hear it. And I worked with my roommate Amanda. We both worked at the equipment room for film and photo. And like about a week goes by like since starting here, I go, do you hear like anything like when you're alone in the house? And she like snaps, she's like, someone keeps saying my name when I'm alone in the house and I don't know what's happening.
No!
And so we spent like an entire afternoon like researching our house to try and find anything about someone who was murdered there, like a death there, something. And we come to find out like all of our roommates like experienced some kind of like noise or something when they're alone.
It's only when you're alone.
It's only when we're alone. And it got to a point where my my girlfriend at the time told me, like, we were talking about it, she goes, I need to bring this up. When you're not in the room and I'm in here alone or whatever, it feels like there's something just on the end of your bed. Like just nothing. She's like, nothing violent, because she's also a person who was interested in the paranormal and all that.
Right.
Like, and she was like, it doesn't feel evil. It doesn't feel like it's trying to cause me any harm. And it just feels like there's someone like sitting in there waiting, like just hanging out, like watching in a sense.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like
I feel like that's so creepy.
like just waiting on the edge of the bed until one night, like I'm sitting in the bedroom, like watching something on my laptop, and she comes in from the bathroom, soaking wet, wrapped in a towel, like come in. She goes, I'm never taking a shower here again. She was in the shower, and the shower caddy with all the shampoo and everything is behind her. So she told me she had her back to the shower head, and a bottle of shampoo whipped against the wall from over her shoulder. And she was alone, which means something came out of the shower caddy and whipped against the wall and scared her enough to leave the bathroom without like drying off and go right back into my bedroom.
Yeah.
And she was like, never happening again. Never taking a shower here again.
But that's never happened to you.
That never happened to me. But like, so over the course of like living there, like I would hear my name occasionally, but it was never, I never had any kind of violent interaction. None of my roommates had any. And then when we started to move out, our landlord was a terrible prick, who was just really bad at his job and tried to like nickel and dime us for everything. So before I moved out, I wrote a letter, like that was written from the perspective of someone who had been like terrorized by a ghost. I was like, there's something here. There's something in these walls, like watching us, like don't go in the basement. And I like wrote it and got like more jittery handed like as I got to the end of the note, and then I like weathered it and like dirtied it up, and I like hid it in a shelf in the closet. And so it's a joke that I will never ever see pay off, as someone finding a letter from someone who was terrorized by a ghost. But like that was the least creepy experience I think I've had, because I told you about what?
No, I'm just because that's creepy to me.
Yeah, that was super creepy. Then, yeah, I told you about the school I went to before that. Yes.
Chestnut Hill?
Chestnut Hill College.
Yeah.
Should we get into this?
Yes.
Okay. I went to my freshman year of college, when I first went to college before I dropped out. I went to a school called Chestnut Hill College in Germantown, Pennsylvania. It's about a half hour outside of Philadelphia. Like, it's about a half hour bus ride into the city. And it's one of the oldest, it started as a convent originally, called the Sisters of St. Joseph's, and it was started like mid 1800s, I think, is when it was started. And I went there on a baseball scholarship to play baseball there, and it's a very small campus. Okay. You can walk from one end of it to the other in, I think, five minutes. It's super small.
Oh wow!
You can Google it right now. You can look at like the layout from from Google Earth, and it's super tiny.
Chestnut Hill College.
Chestnut Hill College
in
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah. If you look up Chestnut Hill College, you'll find them because they just got a cease and desist letter from Warner Brothers.
What happened? What did they do?
So it's an old school. It started as a convent and then also became an orphanage. And so the buildings are very old. They're very beautiful buildings. But it looks fairly like Hogwarts. Like, it looks semi like Hogwarts, and they started doing a thing where they would have Harry Potter weekend, where they would have like Quidditch matches. And then like
I think I heard about that.
They have a train station in that area, and they would like call it the Hogwarts Express, and kids would come in, and they would have like it became this whole big thing that the town would just put on.
Yeah.
For kids and for adults, and like it was a weekend of just Harry Potter stuff, and like the entire town, it ended up becoming part of the entire town.
Yeah. And
then Warner Brothers was like, no, because J.K. Rowling is incredibly litigious.
Really?
Yes. Oh yeah. I worked at a company where we were putting out a Harry Potter related crate and subscription, and she had final say on everything.
Oh wow.
Yeah, she is very hands on with her stuff, and so.
But it's like, I mean, I get it.
Yeah. But also, like, at a certain point, what you put out into pop culture is no longer yours.
To some degree, yeah.
To some degree, like, no one's suing Beetle House in Hollywood.
What the hell is Beetle House?
Beetle House is the Tim Burton themed bar in Hollywood.
Where is that?
It's on Hollywood Boulevard. It's
Beetle House.
It's near the Urban Outfitters. It's kind of close to Amoeba in Hollywood.
Oh wow.
Yeah, look at Beetle House. They have like sideshows there and everything. They have like Tim Burton themed drinks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then they also have an Edward Scissorhands actor and this is the weirdest choice. They have a Willy Wonka Johnny Depp actor also hanging around. Okay. Because you know of all the great Tim Burton movies.
That's the most
Charlie and the Chocolate
one.
Factory goes Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Edward Scissorhands, and then the character from Big Eyes.
Ricky says it's lamer than it sounds.
It is lamer than it sounds. It is. Here's the thing. It is lamer than it sounds, but if you want to pay for a fishbowl amount of alcohol,
it's a good place to go.
It's a good place to go. It's pretty, like, don't get dinner there because it costs an arm and a leg. I went there with my girlfriend and we were just like, no, we're not. Like, we got reservations and we're just like, no, this isn't. Meh. But if you're a goth kid in Los Angeles, hit it up. If you haven't been, it's probably something.
I've never heard of it. How long has it been there?
About a year almost.
Oh, that sounds kind of new.
Yeah.
I'm never in Hollywood.
Yeah, same.
Okay.
But yeah, Ricky's right. It is lamer than it sounds. It's at least worth one trip to.
Right, just to be like, all right,
so you did it.
Okay, sorry, what were you saying? You were talking about
talking about legal issues and the Warner Brothers company.
This is Legal Wednesday, guys.
Yeah. No, so the school, Chestnut Hill College, I went there. And at the end of freshman orientation, when you go there at the end of the week, they have a ghost hunting team come through and they bring you around the school to where the
When
most...
is this? Oh, just during orientation.
At the end of freshman orientation. So it's like a week-long orientation.
Okay.
And they bring in paranormal investigators to bring around people, and they show them like the most like active places on campus, which the library, the Raymer Library, I think is one of the most active.
Okay.
And it's like it's a school that was built again on top of it. So it started as a convent and then became a convent and orphanage. Then became an all-girls school years down the road, like in the 1940s or 50s, I think.
Okay.
Fact check me, please. And then became co-ed in the early 2000s, maybe late 90s. And so they're just building on top of old ground. You're building new buildings off of old ground. The freshmen,
is it the same actual like structure, or they knock it down?
a lot of them, like St. Joseph's Hall, is the same structure. It's just been refurbished a lot.
Okay.
Fournier Hall, I think, has been built on top of and refurbished over time.
Okay.
Fontbonne Hall,
that's where you live.
That's where I live. The freshman doors were built on top of a mausoleum. Raymer Library has been there for a while, at least since the 60s, I think.
Okay.
And was built, and then there was like brand new dorms that were like technically like advanced compared to everything else on campus. And then there was like a hill that goes down to where the softball fields are and all that in the parking lot. And so they bring around the freshmen for
ghost hunting.
For ghost hunting, essentially, they like take the cameras, all that. They like bring the temperature.
That
like
just
the
sounds really
thermometers
fun.
It's pretty cool. Like if you're a freshman going into college, it's like, yeah, you had like all these talks about like not drinking and all this, but it's like also there's ghosts here on this dry campus.
I was
Dry. And then so my first, and I dropped out after a semester. Just wasn't for me. Wasn't enjoying it. And then we're about a week or two into living in the freshman dorms, and so it was separated by gender. Each floor is separated by gender, and so it's all boys on the 4th floor. We're on the very top floor, and the weird thing is if you stand at the end of the hall of the 4th floor and look out, you can see where a cemetery is, where all of the old nuns are buried. So you can see the convent cemetery where all the dead nuns are. And about a week living there, I have a dream where I'm laying in bed and I look at the alcove of where my door is in my dorm, and there is a woman or a girl standing there with long black hair in like a very sheet-like kind of nightgown. And it was one of those dreams where you're like, I'm not sure if I'm really seeing this or not, because everything is exactly the same. Wake up, gone. Couple more days go by, similar dream where she's now standing in the corner of the dorm. So I'm like laying in bed looking, she's standing in the corner.
She's in your room.
In my room.
She keeps getting closer.
Getting closer. And then, like every now and again it keeps like popping up.
Yeah.
And then one afternoon.
But what's I'm sorry, I know this story, but
yeah.
I'm actually now have like questions about it. Like, does she ever do anything, or is she just stands there? That's weird.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, just watching.
What are you doing
Just
there?
standing and watching.
Yeah.
And then a couple days later, I'm in the dorm next to mine playing video games with a friend, Brian, at the time. And I just, all of a sudden, I was talking about dreams, and I was like, I had this creepy dreams where this woman is just standing staring at me. And he's like.
You see your face?
What?
You see
no.
It's covered.
It's just hair, like, it's so obscured by shadow and, like, the dark of the room that you can kind of make out silhouettes and hair, and the white is pretty present, just given, like...
So no face.
No face. And I tell him about this dream, and he's like, I've been having dreams like the same exact thing, where he's been having same dreams about the same figure just hanging out, like, watching him. Like, he's had dreams where he's in the hallway and sees at the end of the hall. Like a couple more weeks go by and we come to find out that a good amount of all the boys staying on this floor have had very similar dreams. They're all seeing the same woman, just like dream hopping, like almost. And it wasn't until like I was researching, because I was doing a podcast about like paranormal experiences a while back, and I was like, oh, what don't I know about like Chestnut Hill? And I researched, I'm like, that's been a thing that's been happening to people who have been sitting in that dorm since like the 1970s.
That's crazy.
Like, that's been a thing where people have been seeing that same girl.
That's wild.
For decades. And they said the other thing is she is occasionally followed by a male spirit who is much more aggressive.
What's he doing? What does he do?
Like, just like they're more violent dreams, like more grabbing and kind of like following. Like for the dreams that everyone's been having, it kept going for Roe Carter. Wow, I need new glasses.
Can you not read?
Roe Carter in 1982. It stopped. I had it for. I was only there from August until Christmas break, so
couple
months, like 4 or 5 months, I guess. It was occasionally, like, it would be like at least once a week
that you had a dream.
That I had a dream of this woman. I never saw the male spirit or the man in the dreams. I don't know anyone who did.
Sounds like bad news.
Yeah. So I found that out when I was researching, like 2 years ago. I found that out, and I was like, "Whoa, that's super creepy!" Like I didn't understand that. Another experience we had was me and Mike Campbell were going down to the softball fields one night to go smoke weed. Sorry, they know. They know. They did it too. Sorry, parents.
Oh yeah, hi Dad.
Yeah, hi Dad. We're going down there. We go to sit and smoke, and it's a November night, like on the East Coast. So there's no humidity whatsoever. It's like there's no storms. It was a completely dry night out, very cold. And we're sitting on a bench, and then fog starts rolling in. Like a fog, like creeping across a field, and like got up to within like 5 to 10 feet of us.
Yeah.
And we're like, we're gonna go. And like we got up and went back up the hill, and we looked down. The fog had started like breaking up again and just like disappearing from where it was like originally crawling towards us.
Weird.
Yeah.
So like, are you saying it wasn't behaving like normal fog? It was as if it was like a unit of fog.
It was it was almost like
weird.
It was like a creeping mass of fog, and down on that level, like down in the bottom of the hill, there was always been this like obelisk kind of monument, and it's like at a far part of the campus, like no one really goes by. It's like on the edge of the woods, and also like the creepiest thing is the Wissahickon River runs right behind this campus, and I couldn't find out researching a couple years ago that monument was there for a girl in the 50s who was murdered and on campus. And so it's like, oh, okay, cool. Let's put a monument to a murdered girl.
Wait, she died. Did that have anything to do with the river? That's separate.
That's where the woods were. So she was found.
She was found in the woods.
She was found in the woods after being murdered, and they put her monument on campus.
And she was a student there.
She was a student
when she
there.
died. Oh,
yeah.
That's sad.
So here's another St. Joseph's Hall, which is where the main convent building. Did anyone else ever say anything now or recently? I have lost majority of contact with everyone I went to that college with. I could reach out to them. This was 2009. So this is almost a decade ago. Oh God, I've gotten old. The convent in St. Joseph's Hall, when it was an orphanage as well, had a massive fire that like collapsed the top floor and killed an entire floor of orphans in the most like ridiculous cartoonish way. Like it's just like, and then the orphans like, caught fire and died. Like the saddest thing you could think of.
I know.
Like,
oh my God.
It was on Puppy Day.
Oh
like,
no, the puppies died too. It did not move. Stop it. Sorry. Every freaking stream, they keep trying to convince me that this is that one. The bendy doll is moving. It's not freaking moving. Stop it.
And so I had my friend Kay Donovan, who lived. So they rebuilt that floor. Because
two people said it in separate chats. So now I'm like, wait a second, did it actually happen? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And so my friend Kay Donovan, who they had recently, like in the time of 1840s to then when I was going there, had rebuilt and put dorms in that building.
Yeah.
And my friend Katie said, she's like, late at night, if I'm up working, I can hear footsteps just running up and down the hallways, like not heavy enough to be a person, like definitely like light tiny, enough to be children's feet. And I went there one night, like I just listened. I stayed up until 2 a.m. and
you went and heard it.
She told me, I was like, yeah, I'm into this. And then went and listened to it, and it got real creepy. Like I heard it, and then I like opened the door, nothing. Here's the creepiest story I think that came out of St. Joseph's Hall. There's a couple. I'll get to the saddest one last. So there's also like I was saying, the freshman dorms are also built on top of a mausoleum, which in the 1960s, a drifter was living down there.
Yeah.
And there was a tunnel that led, there's like underground tunnels in this school.
Yeah.
Like that would go from like, you go down, if it was too cold out or if it was snowed in, you could go out of your dorm underground to like Fournier Hall or St. Joseph's Hall because it was that old. Like
it's like how Disney used to be.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it was old enough to have tunnels from building to building.
Yeah.
And there was a tunnel that would lead from Mother Superior's quarters down into the mausoleum for church reasons. Like, I assume if you're a nun, a lot of stuff has to do with blessing someone or something or other.
Yeah, it's your job.
It's your job. You're just always with the holy water. And they ended up finding this drifter who was living down there, and he was like kind of operating, like selling drugs and whatnot, like out there. And they called the police, had him escorted out, and then when a janitor went down there to like clean out his belongings, he came back out, and the reports from the nuns say that he was white as a sheet, and he said, he's like, we need to just close this off. And so according to school lore, they closed off that mausoleum and then bulldozed the top of it, and then that's what the freshman dorms were built on.
Wow.
So that might explain why there are ghost girls jumping into dreams.
I want to know what he saw, though.
Yeah, right?
He never told anyone? He just said, we gotta close
the
it.
only thing I've heard, like, is just, like, he's like, it's a nightmare, like...
But, like, what?
Yeah. Like...
I kind of hate that. I hate it when people see some, like, real, like... shit that they saw, and then they like don't say what it was.
I'll never tell anyone. And
no, hello. There's so many.
Lloyd, you can't die with your secrets.
Yeah, like
you're a janitor. You're supposed to deposit wisdom on people. That's what movies have taught me. Exactly. That's what Rudy taught all of us. Then the Raymer Library, I would be down there in the basement, and you definitely can. Other people have said they've seen carts just move by themselves on their own, like out of the corner of their eye. You'll hear like carts, like book carts. Oh, carts. For library books, you would just hear a move, and you would see like something move out of the corner of your eye. And the people who work there, like, and they're like, yeah, it's haunted. They're like, I definitely hear stuff all the time.
Right.
In Fournier Hall, there's the Red Eye Room, is what it was called. So this one's super creepy. In Fournier Hall, there was a section you could see what looks like a door frame, at least like the outline of it, in a wall.
Okay.
And it was called the Red Eye Room because a female student in the 60s was complaining about seeing red eyes from the corner of her room when she was trying to sleep.
Nope. Which
can be tossed up to sleep paralysis.
True.
That is a thing that people who suffer from sleep paralysis do experience.
I've never heard of seeing red eyes though.
Yeah. Have you watched The Nightmare?
I have.
Yeah.
They talk about it in that.
Mm-hmm. When they say the shadow people, that one when the one that comes in with the red eyes and like hovers above them. Outside of the shadow people and like the man with the hat.
Right.
Which is like the guy.
Right.
But there was this whole thing where they kept talking about red eyes, and then they actually had there was reports of an exorcism happening in that room, and the priest who performed the exorcism died 2 weeks later. And then they were like, well, we're just going to seal this room off, and so they locked the room. No one was allowed to stay in it. Like, they cleared everything out. They locked the room, and then people would say, like, at night, like, janitors would say, it sounds like someone's trying to get out from that room from the inside.
No, it doesn't.
So there would be people working at night, and it would just be like, just someone like on the other side, like a doorknob, like trying to get out, like pulling and yanking on it. And
so they just covered up the door.
Then they just
the door still exists there.
So that room is still on the other side. They just built a wall over it.
Because that works.
Yeah.
God.
So it's like, well, there's no door there. It can't get out. And like, this is a school that had like an old gym that they built a new one on top of, and there was like an old pool, much like that Are You Afraid of the Dark episode.
I don't think I remember that one.
Tale of the Dead Man's Float.
I don't remember that one.
Oh, it's the creepiest. It is the scariest episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark that exists, I think.
Okay.
So it's about a nerdy kid who ends up finding a pool that was like shut down by the school. They just built like a wall and hid it behind lockers.
Okay.
And then because in the 50s a kid drowned in there. Yeah, look it up. Ezio Games, look it up. Yeah, Tale of the Dead Man's Float, starring a very young Jay Baruchel from the...
Who's that? Oh!
Yeah.
Oh.
Of the Seth Rogen group.
I'm sure I've seen it. I just do not remember.
And it has the scariest monster from Are You Afraid of the Dark, because up until that point, it was, like, kind of goofy, kind of weird. And then at the end of it, like, to see the ghost that's lurking in this pool, they pour, like, chemicals in the pool to dye it red. And it rises up, and it's like a skeleton with, like, skin hanging off of it. And you're like, oh, like, as a kid, you're like, wow, all right, this is not something I was prepared mentally for. And so the saddest story, I think, out of Chestnut Hill.
Okay.
It used to be a convent, and there was a story of a young sister nun, I wasn't talking about, like, my actual sister, like a young sister. I'm not Bootsy Collins. Yeah. Who apparently, the story goes, became pregnant with a priest's child, and instead of, like, coming forward about it or anything like that to spare him the embarrassment, so the way St. Joseph Hall is positioned is there's the main hall when you walk in, there's a main foyer, and then there's stairs that go up to a second landing. If you ever seen the second Matrix movie, like that, the fight scene in the mansion, like that. So there's a landing that's beautiful, like marble floor, all this, stairs on both sides going up to get to the second floor.
Right.
It's about a maybe 10 to 12 foot, like, climb upstairs. She threw herself over that landing and hit the floor and killed herself. In 2011, a summer professor was teaching a math class to a bunch of pre-college kids, and they said in the middle of class he just walked out of the classroom, ran down the hall, and threw himself over the landing and committed suicide and hit his head on the tile floor and killed himself.
And no one knows why.
No, like, his wife said that he had been having, like, stress issues lately. Like, but he said, like, it was a whole thing. Like, this guy just walked out of a classroom, ran down a hall, and threw himself over a landing and killed himself.
Whoa! But in the exact same
in, like, way. The same area, in the same way that this nun killed herself.
That's wild.
Like, if you look it up, I don't want to say the person's name I don't want to say a dead person's name on stream and, like, bring bad luck to their family or, like, put anything on them, but you can look that up. If you look up unfortunate suicide at Chestnut Hill College.
That was not that long ago.
No, I think because it was after I left and my dad sent me the email, the article about it, and I was like, oh, that's weird. That's super weird.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But he's the only one that had happened.
As far as I know, yeah, in recent history.
You know what's a little weird? I feel like there's a lot of schools, particularly Catholic schools, where nuns or priests, like, reside nearby, that have a similar story. Because I remember my sister telling me she went to USF, and do you know what? Have you been there?
University of
San Francisco?
Oh no, I haven't.
There's a bit. They have, like, the campus is a little spread out, but there's this one building on this place that they call Lone Mountain. It's just like a little area that's kind of like you have to drive up a steep thingy, and then there's, like, a building that used to, I want to say that the nuns used to live or still do live, but it was a big building, and same thing where it's like freaking, like, entrance with the stairs.
Yeah. And
she told me that they're, like, legend has it that nun was raped by a priest, and then she ended up killing herself there, and that her spirit haunts that building. So I'm like, does this happen all the time, or is this just, like, a thing that,
given
like,
the news out of the Catholic Church?
Yeah.
Probably. But yeah, so that was the most haunted school I've ever. It's one of the most haunted places on, like, the East Coast, according to whichever chart you're reading or whichever, like, list. There's, like, people say, like, Dartmouth is the most haunted school, I think, in the country. I've never gone. And then, yeah, since moving to LA, I haven't had... The only other experience I really had as a kid was when I drove... I think I told you I drove through a ghost.
I think so. But then you said, I think I was just sleepy.
No, so when that was on
maybe
the
I don't
way
know this
back
one.
from a friend's party, like it was high school, or I think it was just graduated high school. I'm driving back through this road called Whitty Road in my neighborhood back in New Jersey, and don't do this. I was driving, and I had the hookup, which was the thing you plugged into your iPod to connect to a radio station.
Yeah,
remember that?
yeah.
Like you would find the one radio station that had like no signal, and it would like connect to that.
Yeah.
I'm like driving, looking at my iPod, changing the song, driving, looking at my iPod, changing the song, driving. Look up, child standing in the middle of the road. Like through her immediately. No sound, nothing. Like it was a split second of a child standing. Like this girl standing in the road looking, and then right through, it's like 11 p.m. at night. I stop my car, get out, look, nothing in the road, and then I did like 80 all the way home.
And that was it, though.
That was it. And it's on this windy road that has like one streetlight one streetlight out. It's like there's a one curve of it that doesn't have lights.
Yeah.
And that's where it happened. Yeah. Like, and then my mom has still made fun of me for that story.
Why?
Because she doesn't believe in ghosts.
But like, so was the kid like? Describe the kid. She's standing there looking at you. Was she walking across the street?
Just right there, like positioned in the road, and not an old ghost either. It wasn't like a little girl.
She's wearing modern clothes.
Like modern clothes,
Okay.
like kind of like kindergarten.
You don't hear
like,
about those ghosts.
No,
enough.
they're always old.
And always in like Victorian
It's always
dresses.
there's
and
never
shit.
like a ghost who died in like the 80s.
Yeah, with like cool outfits.
And is like
shit.
still hanging around with like a members only jacket. Like that's never a thing.
Where are those ghosts?
There's apparently a long line to become like.
There's a waiting period.
Yeah. We all have unfinished business.
Yeah.
So you need to wait. At least the ghost didn't hurt you, yeah.
That's wild though. Wait, so you're positive that like you saw
I'm 100% positive that I saw.
What happened when you drove through? Did you see like it disappear? You just went right.
It was I used to drive a truck in high school. So I was high off the ground. So I saw it, and then as I got close to the hood, like I went through, and like the hood like obscured like the level that it was standing at. That's when I like, oh, didn't hear anything. Stopped, got out, looked.
Did you think you killed someone?
I genuinely thought I ran over
That's
somebody.
so scary. That's scary.
Yeah.
Because then you're a murderer.
Exactly. Thankfully, she was already dead.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
You know, when you hear something really creepy? I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I had a friend who told me that his sister one time was driving, and apparently this is a common thing that happens, which freaks me out when I'm driving at night. So she was driving late at night, like on the freeway, and it's like really dark except for your headlights, and then all of a sudden she sees, was it on the freeway or maybe it was a street? I forget. She sees a girl in the street, and she goes, oh shit. She like swerves to avoid her, and then she looks in her rear view mirror, and the girl is in her car. And then she like freaks out, and then she like, I think she disappears after a while, but like she was in the car after that. And now every time I have to look in the rearview mirror, I'm so scared I'm gonna like see someone there. I don't know.
There's a great paranormal photograph of something similar to that, where I think it was a widow took a photo in their car when she was visiting her husband's grave, and you can see him in the back seat.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's like
it old?
It's like 60s era.
Okay.
So like there's a lot of really cool paranormal photographs. You look them up, you can find some really cool stuff, like the Black Monk of Pontefract.
What's that?
So there's, if you want to look up cool hauntings, look up the Black Monk of Pontefract. And also Pontefract. It's an old town in England.
Okay.
Look up that, and also look up the Enfield Poltergeist haunting.
Is that the one Conjuring 2 is based on?
Yeah, which is way more interesting than what the Conjuring 2 does with it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, is this the one with the photo of like the body falling from the ceiling? Or am I thinking of a different one? Have you seen that photo? Because that one creeps me out.
No.
Or it looks like there's like a body falling from the ceiling.
That's cool though.
It's so terrifying.
No, the Enfield Poltergeist haunting is really cool because there are books about it. There's a book called "There's a Ghost in This House," which Maurice Grosse, who is one of the investigators who was there, who spent like 9 months with this family.
Yeah.
Which the woman who is interviewed for The Conjuring 2 and talks about it, they kind of make her more cheery than she actually is, because she definitely had a terrible time with this thing growing up in
Right.
her house. And the people who made The Conjuring are like, well, that's not fun. We like can't have a damaged woman talking about a ghost on our DVD commentary. Maurice Grosse and I forget the other man who was there, who running the paranormal activity like tests on it. Like they 9 months investigating it, and then like the Jenny, I think her name was, the daughter who was like the main focus of the energy. Like they did audio recordings of like a voice coming out of her and talking like things that are super low volume that cannot be generated from a child's like vocal cords.
Right.
And then there's reference to Gozer, which is where Dan Aykroyd got the inspiration for Gozer the Destroyer in Ghostbusters.
Who's that?
Is
that the name of the
remember the flat top lady who comes out at the end of Ghostbusters?
That's her name?
Gozer, yeah.
Oh.
Gozer the Destroyer, which
Okay.
Dan Aykroyd is a big time paranormal person. He also loves aliens.
Oh.
And he there's an 1.5-hour documentary of him like shot on like an SD camera of him just chain smoking cigarettes in his living room talking about UFOs and aliens.
Oh.
And there's like a part of it how he talks about like there was a UFO outside his house but he was too tired to get up and go look. Like it's really like Dan Aykroyd's a crazy person.
Yeah.
Like the original script for Ghostbusters was like 400 pages.
Oh God.
Because he loves ghosts and the paranormal, and he got the name Gozer from There's a Ghost in This House, this book that Maurice Grosse wrote. And there's some really interesting stuff where that house in Enfield ended up becoming like kind of a small tourist attraction. And it's like one of the few paranormal cases that isn't debunked by a lot lot
Okay.
I keep looking under my bed thinking there's something under there. I have two beds.
Two beds.
Is it over? Question mark. The box ghost. But there's like people like neighbors said they would see like just weird glowing lights coming from inside that house. Like the mayor came through one time and like was like, "Huh, it's weird that your grandfather clock." I'm doing a bad British accent on purpose. "It's weird that your grandfather clock hasn't been broken yet." And then like the mom was like, "Oh God damn it!" And then 5 minutes later, the grandfather clock was launched down the stairs by something.
Whoa.
Like smashed on the floor. Horrible. Like
so like they were like, "Oh yeah, well
yeah."
we're gonna
And there
practice.
were parts like Maurice Grosse would say he witnessed like marbles would like float in the air and then drop and then stay still. So if you ever dropped a marble, you know they have like they would bounce. It would just drop and come to a complete dead stop when they would hit the floor. And he like him and the other, I forget his name, look it up. The other person who was working on This House is Haunted. They would try to replicate
that a movie?
it. It's the book that they
that's
wrote.
a book.
It's called This House is Haunted.
This house is haunted.
It's a really good book. It's really interesting. But like multiple people, like neighbors, everything, they're like, yeah, there's like nothing we can do about this. Like it's just like there's stuff that can't be explained. And the mom like put up with so much, which I think there is something that they were, I'll say, dim people in this family. Like I think there's something very nice about being a simple person that kind of lets you just deal with ghosts more than someone else. Like I think if you're like, oh whatever, like
Okay.
life's easier for you, I guess. Like the
Maybe.
ignorance is bliss kind of thing. And so like there's stories like where eggs would apparate, which apparition is when a physical object moves through another physical object.
Oh.
So there would be times where she like actually put a milk carton down on top of her groceries because the ghost was just breaking eggs in her kitchen, and then it would just like they would just appear in front of her and break and then come with the smell of like flowers.
That's weird.
Yeah. And there's audio recordings of Maurice and a couple other paranormal investigators trying to make contact with this ghost, and they're saying, if you're here, let us know. Like it sounds like that. I'm doing an impression, but it does sound that ridiculous. And in the recording you hear a picture get thrown across the room and hit the floor, and it scares everyone recording to the point where one British woman goes, "Oh crumbs." She says "oh crumbs" in the background. And The Conjuring 2 took this, kind of blew it way out of proportion, and made it more demonic than it really was. And there's like parts where like the family started naming the ghost, and they would leave a sandwich out for it, and they would come back and like
treating it like a pet.
They would see like the sandwich move across the table, and then they'd find it with like a bite taken out of it. Like,
whoa,
very bizarre stuff. And a lot of this is recorded, and then the Warrens came up and stuck their freaking nose into it.
Are you not a fan?
I'm not a fan. I think they're con artists.
Really?
Okay. Because
I read The Demonologist. I thought it was interesting.
I don't like Ed, I think his name is, right?
Yes, Ed and Lorraine.
Ed and Lorraine Warren. I'm not a fan of theirs because, like, for this, they showed up for, like, a day and then left and then kind of, like, banked on it. Like, they did with a lot of stuff. Like, they did the same thing with Amityville, which was kind of been proven to be a hoax.
That was a hoax, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, the murders did happen in that house.
But
a family was killed. But the things that happened, like the flies and the get out and, like, all that was found to be a hoax. But they kind of, like... I don't like Ed Warren because he approaches paranormal activity as you have to understand my God before you can understand the evil, which it's like the idea that you have to believe in a Christian God to understand anything about the paranormal, I think is kind of just like
I didn't know that was part of it.
Yeah, that's what his take of it is. He goes, to understand my work, you have to understand my God, and my God is a Christian God, which is it's just kind of like no. Because if there is a paranormal like level to anything,
right? It knows no religion.
It really knows no religion because it stretches every corner of the world.
Yeah.
And they're like Shintoism and Islam and like all this, like it's not gonna decide to just there's a cross in this house. Well, that's the one I'm going for.
You know what? Okay, so on that note. This is maybe like a couple years ago, and the first time that like I was gonna mess with like a Ouija board, and Kevin DeSantos, he had a Ouija board that was like super bootleg. It was $5 from like Toys R Us or something. It was like spelled Weeji. I posted a photo of it. I was like, ooh, we're messing with a Ouija board tonight, just like being like whatever. And then this girl that I used to live with, I won't name her, but she messaged me and she goes, hey Sapphire, I saw your post and I just wanted to say that you really shouldn't mess with those things. And that kind of shit freaks me out when people like do that.
Yeah.
And I was like,
they just cold call you kind of.
Yeah. And I'm just like, whoa, like, cause they're serious. Cause like, why would you do that if you're like, you're not going to mess with me like that. Like, and I was like, she said, she's like, some stuff happened like in my family and like, this stuff is real. You don't want to mess with it. And I was like, oh, like what happened? Because tell me the freaking story. Cause I want to know so that I don't freaking do it. If you're like, yo, everyone you know will die. I'm like, all right, I won't mess with it.
Cool. Well, I'm going.
Right? Exactly. And so, but she was like, it kind of pissed me off because she's like, the things that happened were way too personal. And I was like, but first, I was like, I couldn't even think of something personal enough to not tell me.
Yeah.
Unless, you know what I mean? I was just like, you're trying to convince me to not use this thing. You should freaking tell me the graphic, everything. Anyway, so she didn't tell me, but she said, like, like just kind of basic horror movie type of things where it's like, shit would move, whatever. But then there's also like scary stuff. And she was like, I've never been a super religious person. My whole family is Catholic. But I will tell you that when some stuff was happening, I would pray to every single God. And the only God that they listened to or were scared of was Jesus. And that kind of stuck with me because I was like, what does that mean? What does that mean? I don't know.
I think mentally there's a thing because Christianity, like symbolism and iconography, is so tied to repelling spirits. Like a crucifix is, for sales purposes, a pretty great thing to like put your mark behind. It's like, oh, it repels vampires and evil spirits. What is it? It's a T, and you hold it. It's like there's a lot of stuff like Buddhism doesn't really have that. No. Like Islam for the most part doesn't have that kind of symbolism where it's just it's marketing wise, it's kind of
marketing wise.
Well, the other thing is in terms of the Catholic Church, the devil, like the way the devil is represented now, was never really a big thing in Catholicism until years down the road, into like the 1500s, 1600s. Like early on, like they talk about the devil in the sense that it's more just a trickster god,
right?
And less and not so much the giant red demon that will consume your soul,
right?
And then the Catholic Church is kind of like, numbers are down. We need a Saddam Hussein, essentially.
Yeah.
And then they wield at the devil, and then you get stuff like that. You get the Magnus Maleficarum. That is the book that in Europe during the European witch trials are something horrific to research, because the Salem witch trials were bad, but the European witch trials that happened over the courses of the 1500s up until the 1800s are rough. And the Magnus Maleficarum, which translates to the Hammer of Witches, was a legal tome that sat on the desks of like judges and barristers and like lawyers, which had the scientific and proper ways to search for witches.
Whew, okay.
And so like it includes the whole methods of torture, like everything. Yeah.
Who wrote it?
Oh, I forget who it was. These two German guys, I believe. Look up Magnus Maleficarum. Magnus Maleficarum. It's the Hammer of Witches.
Okay.
And it is essentially like the rule book for how to tell if someone's a witch. And so there's like things like breaking like women's fingers, like and it was stuff that was born out of like you get ideas like the old crone, where at one time in history you don't have mental health and you don't really have mental medicine, and so you have people who are going through things like schizophrenia or paraphrenia, where they seem normal on the outside but their brains are kind of just mush now, they're melted, and they're having horrific hallucinations and they think they're seeing things. Right. And it's like, well, we'll just lock them in a shed out in the woods.
Right.
And so that's where you get like the lore of like the old witch in the woods and like stuff like this, where it's a lot of that is born out of because just medicine wasn't there, and religion's a powerful thing, and that's where you end up building all of this like stuff out of. But yeah, look up the Magnus Maleficarum if you have any interest in the European witch hunts.
I think I'm gonna look it up now.
It's pretty interesting. It's gross and creepy, but also interesting. Like, and it's like the way they would search. Like one of the ways was like shaving women's hair and eyebrows like off, and then like also like looking for the devil's mark, which they would take a needle and they would poke a person all over their body to find it.
Oh my god!
And they said the devil's mark was the part on your body where you cannot feel pain, because that's where the devil scratched you, and it took off your holy chrism, which you got through baptism. And so if you poke someone with a needle like in the thigh and they didn't react, it's like, there it is, witch, like stuff like that. There's a movie from 1923 or 2 called Hexen. It's a silent film that goes into a lot of this as well, that kind of like talks about the history of witchcraft and its ties to like paganism, Satan. It has some really cool like imagery, but look that up. One of those I'm looking at chat.
Punky Spunky says Paranormal Lockdown has an episode about the Black Monk.
Yeah, the Black Monk of Pontefract is cool. I can't remember very specific things about it. It's a very cool story though. Yeah, look that up. Look up anything about that. Amityville is a hoax. Trying to think of other famous hauntings. Bobby Mackey's Music World is in the Midwest. I think it's in Kansas.
What's that?
It was a bar originally, and then it's now like a Guitar Center kind of thing, almost in a sense. And I keep trying to adjust this beanie, and I'm like looking at my equilibrium is off. Like, nope, that's not the right way. Where a woman was murdered in what they said was a satanic ritual. Her head was cut off and it was thrown down a well.
Wow.
And then 10 years later, a janitor or a maintenance worker who was working on the plumbing of that land opened up like the pipe, and the head came rolling out. And since then they've had crazy paranormal situations, like, and now they still like bring like groups through to like communicate with the spirits there. So Bobby Mackey's Music World is up there. The Cecil Hotel. I don't know if you talked about that on here at all.
No.
Oh, the Cecil is great. That's the one where
Stay on Main now. Sorry.
Yeah, Lisa Lamb.
Yep.
Passed away.
Were you with us when we tried during Mr. Pickles to go visit?
We went to the Piccadilly Apartments. That's where. That's the one we went to.
Piccadilly. No. Oh, that you're thinking of when we went to do the Ouija board at Alex's.
Yes.
House. No. During like Mr. Pickles the pilot, a bunch of us, like, during our lunch break, went into the Cecil to go, like, poke around.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They immediately
yes.
kicked us out.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that. Because we, like, went to Garage Pizza or something, like, down that area, and the Cecil was right there, which they've since rebranded.
Yeah, which is hilarious.
It's no longer called the Cecil. If you want to see something terrifying, look up Elisa Lam.
That's freaking horrifying. I think it's still unsolved, right?
It's still unsolved because they don't know how she got into the water tank.
Here's what I think. They do know.
I think they know.
Somebody knows, and somebody is withholding information because it's going to freaking incriminate them somehow. Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of sad, though.
Because there's no way to explain.
No. It was, the door was locked. Water tank needed to be lifted by someone
who was much...
She was naked. Like, her she had to take off her clothes. Where were her clothes? They were, like, somewhere.
And I think it might have been someone taking advantage of somebody who was having a severe mental breakdown.
Yeah.
Because if you watch that footage from the elevator, something's wrong. It's either she's having a severe mental breakdown or there is something terrifying and torturing this poor woman in this elevator, because that just the way she's behaving before she vanished, like, is so creepy.
Wild.
It's wild.
You can YouTube it.
Yeah, you can find it online.
It's very strange. Make your own wild assumptions.
Jay Belusco asks, why would you cut a head off? I don't know.
I mean, it was part of their whatever ritual.
I mean, whatever ritual they were doing. Yeah, are you guys talking about Elisa Lam? Yes, we are, by Sharp.
You know what's it's not that funny, but, like, one of the show that I do, Something Scary, I did an episode about, are you familiar with the elevator game? It's like a paranormal. It's one of those, like, little ritual games you can play, and supposedly
like it's a Bloody Mary level.
Get
kind
that?
Of, yeah.
So there was one called the elevator game, and so there was this one, because I didn't want to just talk about the the thing that happened to her. I wanted to add, like, a paranormal, like, spin on it.
Yeah.
Just for fun. And so I was like, an elevator game. Some people think that that's what she was doing. Mm-hmm. So the elevator game is this ritual that you play. You have to play in at least 10-story building, and there's, like, you have to be alone. It has to be at a certain time after midnight or something.
Probably like 3:33.
Yeah, sure.
Because that is technically the witching hour,
right? Because of all the threes.
But
I think it just you have to be alone. I think, and at night. So basically, you have to go to certain floors in a certain order, and if you do it right, then, like, once you hit the 5th floor, when the doors open, there's supposed to be a lady who you're not supposed to look at because she's, like, not human, and if you look at her, then, like, she'll do something, I forget, but you're not supposed to look at her. She's supposed to get in the elevator, and you're not supposed to address her. She just stays in the elevator with you. That's freaking creepy.
That's creepy.
And then you have to continue the thing, and then once you reach the 10th floor and it opens, supposedly, once you step out, you are now in another dimension. And so, and you can, like, just walk around, like, whatever. I guess, like, what happens in there is, like, it's like the real world, but you're the only, kind of like the Further, I guess, where it's like everything kind of looks the same, but you're alone.
Yeah.
Right. And then when you come back, you have to undo the thing, and then you can come back. So that's, like, the lore of that. And so there was this, like, one theory that Elisa Lam was playing the elevator game and somehow went to another dimension, ended up in the water tank. Right? Like, it's kind of like, okay, maybe. We don't know.
Yeah.
But this guy commented on my Instagram post about my video, and it said something like, please stop spreading these rumors about Elisa Lam. You don't know the facts and something. And I was like, who is this guy with no humor?
The detective on the case?
I clicked on his account, and it seriously said, freelance investigator on the Elisa Lam case.
Which means he's just a guy who shows up at that hotel and touches shit and then leaves. Like, he just puts his fingerprints on everything. It's like, no.
No, get out of here, guy.
Bobby Mackey is in Tennessee. Thank you, Punky Spunky. Thank you. Yeah, freelance investigator. Which means I'm unemployed and I just keep looking at this one YouTube video like I'm going to crack it wide open. You're doing a great job, guy. You're nailing it.
It did say former, I want to say it's a former, like, cop. I have to look it up again. But something where it's like he's no longer in the
I wonder why he's no longer a cop. Maybe because he's investigating ghost murders and harassing people on YouTube.
I know, and I'm like, leave me alone. This is like clearly just
Turn in
like
your gun to your badge. Fine, I'll go solve that ghost case. I'll show all of you. It's been 5 years. What happened?
Yeah, and this was like last year. Like he's still on.
He's still working. They know the real facts. Says Spookmoonkey.
Spookmoonkey? What is that name?
Stay on Main is in California.
Yeah, it's in. Oh, thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah.
She climbed the ladder to the roof from the outside.
From the outside.
But see, isn't part of the whole like mystery of it is that like there's no security footage of her getting onto the roof, whereas like there's one way to get on the roof.
Mm-hmm. Which like. There's gotta like it's a modern building. If they have security footage of like an elevator in a lobby, I'm sure you would have some kind of footage. Yeah.
They're just not showing anybody.
Yeah. Has she made her way to the Museum of Death yet?
I don't think so. I went there. Have you been there?
No, I really want to go.
It's like okay, so
and I'm a person who really investigates and researches serial killers a lot, so I really want to.
Yeah, here's the thing. So it's like. You know, I'm sure you've watched a ton of gory movies too.
Yes.
So it's like a part of me was wondering, like freaking like the shows we've worked on too. It's just like, gore doesn't do anything to me. But I was actually really scared that like if I see photos of true gore, not fake, real people actually dead in these like crazy situations. Is that going to affect me differently than like, you know, because when I watch a movie, I'm like, that's fake. That person's not actually dead. Yeah. But what I found fascinating, because I was really scared. I was like, oh no, like this is going to be bad. When I was looking at the photos, I was like, wow, movies kind of get it right. Like it looked fake, as in like a movie. I was like, whoa, like, I don't know. I thought that was weird.
Yeah. Like I'm trying to think of recent movies I've watched that have made me, because I've gotten to a point now, gore-wise, that I'm kind of like desensitized. And like I saw RoboCop when I was like 11.
I've never seen it.
RoboCop is an incredibly gory movie.
Oh, okay.
It's a nearly perfect film. It's the satire and like the skew on like where news and like technology would come from is like pretty spot on. Like that movie like nailed like CDs. And like the way news media works and all that, and like political like tension, it nails all of it. It's pretty great. Did you watch Gerald's Game?
Yes, I loved it.
The hand on the handcuff with the hand is the thing that got me recently. I was like, ooh,
because I would never seen something like that. It was different. It wasn't just like we've seen heads getting chopped off, whatever.
That and the car scene from Hereditary.
Yes.
With the telephone pole. That one got me recently too. But no,
so it's possible.
I haven't gone to the Museum of Death. Like, as far as I know, Richard Chase doesn't have anything there. He was the vampire. He was the vampire of Sacramento, who was a person who was he was more of a spree killer than a serial killer, but he was driven by the need to consume blood because he thought his body was running. He had a horrible mental deficiency that made him think that his body was constantly losing blood. And so to combat that, he would drink blood.
Doesn't that make you sick?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like, and they got to a point where like he was banned from like pet stores because he would just like buy up like hamsters and rabbits and like bulk.
Even animals and stuff. And people.
And then it got to a point where it was no longer doing it for him, so he went and after people and killed 7 people in 45 minutes.
Whoa!
Or no, like an hour and 45 minutes. Killed 7 people. Killed like 2 families. Yeah. But no, I still have to go to the Museum of Death because I heard they also have Leonard Lake's videotapes there now.
Who is that?
Leonard Lake and Charles Ng were these guys who operated in the 80s and 90s. Who were like the VHS killers. Like they recorded their stuff.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I don't remember that being a part of it.
I know they have Gacy's paintings, or at least one of them. They have one of his paintings.
Yeah. I remember the
best clown in the Chicago area.
God. I don't remember remember much. I remember like they had a whole wall devoted to photos of like the the Manson crime scene.
Why is there a museum of death?
Why
Because
not?
Los Angeles is a city based on broken dreams.
Exactly. But I mean their whole thing is that in our society we usually shield ourselves from death, and so it's preventing us from like learning about it.
Yeah.
Like you learn something by seeing these like horrific things. Like it's not like I hope people aren't going there like who are like actually enjoying seeing these like awful images, but
I think they're people who have a fascination with serial killers, and they said people with a fascination of serial killers are the least likely to actually be serial killers, because the fascination means that they're aware of what's wrong with this, and like this is bad, like and it's always like, and they always say like serial killers are very much the people you never really expect. Like there's a documentary called The Dahmer Files where they interview Jeffrey Dahmer's neighbor, and she talks about how nice he was, and like just the very nice man who had a bunch of heads in his fridge. Like that Ted Bundy was incredibly charming. Like John Wayne Gacy was a clown. Ted Bundy was.
I mean, that one.
How can? But he was popular. Like he was popular. Like people liked him. He was like kind of like an alderman in his neighborhood. Like people had a good opinion of him. Like it's not the same. Not every serial killer was like a super charming person. Like Jerry Brudos is not a charming human being. Jerry Brudos he operated out in Oregon in the 60s and would take photographs of his victims, and had this crazy fetish with women's shoes.
Okay.
He's in, if you watch Mindhunter, he's the guy they bring the shoes to.
Oh,
that's Jerry Brudos.
Okay.
But like Edmund Kemper, who's in Mindhunter, super nice guy. They don't really talk about much in Mindhunter, but Ed Kemper, who was the co-ed killer who worked up in Santa Cruz, would hang out at a popular clown house. He would be hired for people's neighborhood parties, for their kids' parties.
Sounds like gross.
Have you heard of the Sunny Family Cult?
Isn't that a show?
It's a web series.
Yeah.
On Crypt, I believe. But like Edmund Kemper, who murdered I think 14 women, and then killed his grandmother when he was 15 years old. Then he murdered his mom before he turned himself in when he was like in his late 20s. But he would hang out at cop bars. He would hang out with cops at cop bars because he wanted to be a cop, but he was 6'9", 300 pounds, kind of a doofy guy.
Yeah.
Like a big like Snuffleupagus mother, like kind of like whoa, like bumbling guy. And when he called and when he turned himself in, and when he called and told the cops that, hey, I'm the one who's been killing all these girls, they laughed. They're like, oh, good joke, Ed. And then he went there. He's like, no, really, I am. This is how I've done it. Like, I have this gun in this side of my car. I lock them here. I do this. And I just killed my mom about a half hour ago. Like...
At what point were they like, oh, he's serious?
Yeah. Like, he went into the police station because he called and they laughed. And then he headed in and turned himself in. Yeah. Like, yep. If you ever want to do a full serial killers episode, I will gladly come. I know way too much.
Oh my god, no, I love it though. What was my question? Hang on, what time is it? I think we could wrap soon. I think we're headed on the hour and a half mark, and I don't want to keep you too long. Do you guys have any questions for Adam?
Any questions?
He knows a lot about serial killers. If you have any questions,
I know all about that. Horror movies, anything.
Well, wait for questions if people have them. I just recently watched Devil's Candy.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, it's on Netflix.
I've been seeing it. I kind of try and stay away from Netflix horror movies because everyone I've been watching recently, unless I hear really good things about it, like
what's the bad one you saw?
Exeter.
I don't know.
I watched that about a year ago.
I've been watching a lot of shitty horror movies.
Yeah,
but on purpose.
We have a Shudder subscription, so we go with that a lot for horror movies.
Okay.
There's a good movie. I don't know if it's on Netflix. I think it's on Amazon Prime called Coherence. It's not so much a horror movie as it is like a science fiction kind of thriller. It deals a lot with quantum physics and the idea of things happening in the same way, but just a little bit differently.
Okay.
And it's about a dinner party that's during a meteor shower. And then weird stuff starts happening where like someone comes up to the house and leaves stuff, like, and it's like, who left this? Like, this person leaves and comes back and they're different, and it's this whole, it's super good. It came out like 2012.
It's on Amazon Prime?
It's on Amazon Prime. Okay. Xander from Buffy is in it.
I didn't watch Buffy.
Oh, okay. Zoel Mina, who tells the cops that? A mentally unsound person. One time I was all alone thinking about spooky music. I felt something behind me. Any questions? What's your favorite horror movie?
That's such a hard question.
Do you think oftenly if Jack the Ripper, I guess, did it? If so, what about them? I don't really think about Jack the Ripper. I don't find him that interesting. There's a Kyle Kinane joke about he went to England and he was like, yeah, Jack the Ripper. He's like, I want a Jack the Ripper tour. And it's like, they're taking you around London. You're tripping over like cobblestones and everything. And the guy's like, and here's where Jack the Ripper claimed one of his 5 victims. And Kyle Kinane's like, 5?
He only killed 5 people?
Yeah. He's like,
why
there's someone in America. He's like, there's someone in America killing 5 people right now.
I know.
It's like, he's like, I've been spraining my ankle for 5.
Spraining my ankle for 5. Wait, so like, why is Jack the Ripper such a famous name?
I think it's a combination of, one, he was never caught.
So no one knows who he was.
No one knows who he was. And there were such... Have you heard about the Zodiac Killer? Oh, boy.
Didn't they just recently catch him?
Have I?
Oh, no.
No, they called it the Golden State Killer.
That's what I'm thinking of.
I'll get to that Zodiac question in a second. My favorite horror movie, by the way, is John Carpenter's The Thing. Any creepypasta you like? Yeah, hold on. New Japan Pro Wrestling shirt. Kiddo in the chat there.
Okay.
Hell yeah, dude.
I don't know.
It's a wrestling fan. I think Jack the Ripper was interesting for people for a while, right, because there's the mystery of he was never caught, which is kind of the same with the Zodiac.
Right.
But with Jack the Ripper, there was so little evidence, and like Whitechapel back then is a nightmare. It was a nightmare place to live. Yeah. People died on the streets all the time. Like, people rented out beds that were called penny coffins.
Oh God.
Like, to sleep in. Like, it was a terrible time. So I think it was the fact that it was just maybe the first. I think the fact that he was the first serial killer before that was even a term is what makes people so. And there's so many theories about it. There are people like it was a woman. It was a woman. It was a member of the royal family. It was this doctor. It was 3 people. It was the royal doctor. Like, whoa. There's so many theories.
So you're thinking like the lore of Jack the Ripper has preceded him.
Yeah.
Himself.
I think the lore of it preceded him because it's like 5 people were murdered in a gruesome way, not counting the other probably dozens of people who were also murdered in gruesome ways in Whitechapel at the time.
Right. That no one knew about.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Does anyone know about Bonnie and Clyde? Yes. But Zodiac. Yes, I know about the Zodiac. I personally believe the Zodiac Killer was Lee Paul Allen.
Who's that?
Have you ever seen the film Zodiac?
No, I don't think so.
It's great.
Okay.
It's David Fincher's masterpiece. But the Zodiac was a killer who operated in the San Francisco Bay Area during the 1960s, who was never caught, who was writing letters and ciphers to the police and to the San Francisco Chronicle. And the idea that he was never caught is what also kind of like persists about this character, about this person, this being. But Lee Paul Allen was one of the suspects who people at parties like who knew him like tied him to the murder of this one girl, that they knew each other, and then it kind of blossomed out from there. Yeah. And he was also a person who had an obsession with puzzles, which the ciphers that they were sending to the police and to the Chronicle is something that like tied it to him. And after he died is when, I forget, Graysmith, the guy who was the cartoonist who wrote the first book about the Zodiac, stopped getting phone calls after Lee Paul Allen died. And nothing had ever turned up again, Zodiac killing wise.
Right.
And it was also hard to track him because the methods of murder were different, because there was the couple who was stabbed to death out by the lake, But before that, it was mostly all gun murders, like with a 22 up close, like at cars. And there's no serial nature of it. It was just kind of random.
Right.
And I think that's what is a lot of people are like excited about the Zodiac, is like, oh, it could be multiple people, which is what people started to think copycats were a thing. Like, the Zodiac is super interesting, but I do believe that Lee Paul Allen, I think that's his name, the guy who was one of the main suspects, was the Zodiac, because after he died, Graysmith stopped getting phone calls and letters, where he would just be getting phone calls of people saying, I'm the Zodiac, or phone calls late at night of a guy just breathing heavily into a phone.
God.
Yeah.
You know, like, crazy, like, it was so easy to get away with murder back in the day.
It really was.
I think it's so much harder now.
It's much harder now.
Don't try it,
Don't
kids.
try it. But like, John Wayne Gacy had 29 boys buried under his crawl space.
Right? Like, how did that go unnoticed?
He 29.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of boys.
That's as many years as I've been alive.
And then he had the balls to call in homicide detectives into his house to have coffee. Meanwhile, you got a tomb underneath your floorboards. And like, that smells like dead bodies, because we're homicide detectives and we know what that is.
Is that how he got caught?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Which also John Wayne Gacy killed. They were hookers. They were male prostitutes for the most part. Some of them were younger.
I thought they were like kids.
Some of them were younger. The male prostitutes, they were like 16, 15 years old. Some of them were young men who worked, because he was a construction foreman who did work summer jobs for him. But he did kill his first murder. He may have killed the greatest gay male prostitute in the Illinois area, because the morning after, Gacy woke up and saw the prostitute was standing there with a knife in his hand, and Gacy snapped, thought he was going to kill him, strangled him to death, and then realized he was holding a knife because he made breakfast.
Whoa.
So you had a prostitute stay over and make you breakfast in the morning, and you murdered him.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, like, I mean, Ed Gein, not a serial killer, but he operated for years. He's the one. Do you know Ed Gein?
Isn't he the one that Leatherface is based on?
He's the one Leatherface is based off of. He's the guy.
But how is he not a serial killer?
Because he only killed 2 people, and I believe Mary Hogan's murder was on accident. Like, he didn't mean, like, it was a tussle and shot her and then had to cover it up.
Okay.
He's not a serial killer because everything he did, he was a grave robber. He dug everyone up.
He would take bodies.
He would take bodies, dig them up. And people didn't suspect him because they're like, well, this guy digging up bodies has to be this huge muscular person. Like, and Ed Gein's this old, shriveled, like, raisin of a dude.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, I'll show you. And, like, took him out, like, dug up, like, and the way, like, grave diggers back then, they didn't have the benefits of using a tractor to pull things out of the ground. They would dig 3 feet down, kind of put wood over it, and then just leave it there. So you're not really digging a 6-foot grave, you're digging 3 feet down, which is easier to dig to.
Yeah.
And then you let Ed Gein come through and picks up bodies, brings them back to his house, makes belts and lampshades, and he puts a pair of lips on a shutter that he would close and kiss.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So nasty.
And here's the creepiest thing about Ed Gein, besides all of the horrific furniture he made out of people. He lived a very weird life. Again, religion tying into this. His mom was incredibly devout Catholic religious. Like, I think her name was also Clarnell.
Okay.
Which is like a horse's name. It might be a different serial killer. I might be getting that wrong. It's weird that all famous killers from the 1900s. It's because people are easier to track now.
Yeah, it's harder to get away with being.
It's harder to get away with stuff. But so when they went to his house, when they finally like caught him, and the weird thing is, Ed Gein would joke about where Mary Hogan was all the time because like, haven't seen Mary in a bit. Do you know where she is at? He's like, oh, she's hanging out at my place, and like, oh, Ed, literally, she's on a meat hook in like the back room, like. She's literally hanging out at his house.
Oh, that's
like,
weird.
oh, that weird oddball Ed. But they get to his house, and they walk in, and it is a nightmare factory. You have belts made of human skin. You have a vest that was carved off a person. You have faces on the wall.
Yikes.
He had 9 faces. 4 were for the wall. 5 were for wearing. Just an utter nightmare house. they go upstairs, and the only door in the house, there's one door in the house that was locked and boarded up.
Yeah.
So all that stuff is in the lobby. Like, so when they definitely drew straws to find out who was the one who was going to go into that room to see what was so creepy that that he had to lock it up.
Yeah.
And it was his mother's room, and it was completely spotless. The day she died, he boarded up her room, which I think ties into a killer's or a gross psyche, someone's psyche, where he was so controlled by this domineering maternal figure that when she died, that it was still so locked in his brain that if I lock up her room, she can't keep an eye on me anymore. And so, like, yeah, there's a lot of interesting psychology that's like behind these people's brains, which I think is the most interesting thing about them. One winter, my sister and I were playing in the yard. We wandered over by a tree. Then we heard a voice beckoning us to come closer. I knew something wasn't right. I ran. My sister luckily eventually caught up with me, realizing around could have been a stranger on the property, but it might have been a Wendigo. Do you live in the Yukon? Where do you live? The Wendigo, for people who don't know, is it's from Native American folklore, which is a vengeful spirit that essentially lives
by eating people.
Lives by eating. Yeah, if you eat a person in the woods, you essentially become a Wendigo. Oh my God, what a Ouija Wednesday.
Hi, Mistress Mystic Mayhem. I think I remember you.
Do you have any interest in H.H. Holmes? Yes.
He was like America's first serial killer.
He was America's first serial killer because he also created his murder hotel.
Right.
During the World's Fair. There's a great book called Devil in the White City that gets into that a lot.
Okay.
And I think he's kind of interesting because of the fact that he actually had a goon that worked for him.
Mm-hmm.
I forget his name, but there was a guy that he pulled all of his like insurance schemes with because that's how he like funded everything.
Oh wow!
Was like insurance schemes and like would lie to people and like take stuff and not pay him back.
Yeah.
He's super interesting.
Excuse me.
Albert Fish, if you have a strong stomach, who is another one of America's earliest serial killers. He has a bunch of names like the Gray Man, the Werewolf of Wisteria, mainly murdered children.
Oh, wow.
It was essentially a boogeyman, and was this old man with this huge curly mustache, and would wear these old gray suits and would just like be like a shadow in these towns.
No.
And he had children, like he had a family and kids. And like he was a very bizarre man. He was a very horrific human being. I don't want to get into it because it's very gross. All the stuff he did. Any other? Yep, exactly how Holmes did. Yeah, Holmes had. Yeah, he had a murder hotel that he would lure people into, mostly women, and then had greased chutes in the walls of his hotel that he would send bodies down after killing them, either through like pumping gas into the room, and send them down, and then put them in acid, and then sell their skeletons.
Did he kill?
There's no confirmed number. Like I think it was as high as 30, but people claimed 100, at least.
Yeah. Oof.
Like at the murder hotel alone. Then he tried to do the same thing when he moved out to Texas, but then a bunch of his schemes like fell through. And like he got caught because he also spent time in jail, and he loved the idea. H.H. Holmes loved the idea of being a criminal mastermind. He loved that idea. And he was in jail with a actual outlaw at the time whose name was like the Handsome Burglar. I forget his actual name, but his moniker was the Handsome Burglar or the Handsome Robber. Very handsome man for the time. And he would brag about all this stuff to this guy he was sharing a jail cell with. Years down the road, that guy gets caught again, is getting interrogated by police and all this, and starts telling a story about this guy who said he had this murder hotel and all these plans, and they're like, huh.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what kind of led to his downfall, was another criminal who was an actual criminal.
Yeah.
Like this like actual gunslinger robber kind of ratted him out.
Wow.
Just through talking about him. And they're like, huh, was it this person? Like this guy looked like this, owns this? Like, yeah. And so like it's very interesting. He's a very interesting figure in American history.
Huh. What? I can imagine a murder on Twitter. What does that even mean?
I mean, there was the Craigslist killer a few years back.
Is that what Creep is based on?
Yes. Yeah, the Craigslist killer a few years back.
Yeah, it's scary.
I mean, they just recently called the Golden State Killer who was operating in the 70s.
It's wild.
Yeah, there's a lot.
But where are all the women serial killers?
Eileen Wuornos is the most brutal and the most well known.
Yeah.
Women serial killers, for the most part. Here's the other thing about male serial killers, women serial killers. Women serial killers are way better at it. Mm-hmm. You know why? Because they're not driven by ego.
Yeah.
They're also their methods of murder are not as grisly. Mm-hmm. It's usually poison related.
Yeah.
A lot of it's usually poison.
I was listening to this book about serial killers, and there was a chapter about like, so I know it seems that like there's no women serial killers, but it's just like because of like the way that we define what a serial killer is, the women who do kill, it just doesn't fall under that.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not that there aren't female serial killers. There are plenty of women murdering constantly.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But it's like, isn't that like weird though? Like, I don't know. I find that so strange.
And I think there are women serial killers who murder constantly, but I think it's also, you get into the ideas of product and process killers, which for the most part are men. And I think a lot of male serial killers for the most part are sex driven murders. Mm-hmm. Either it's the process to it that they enjoy, or it's what comes after. The product is what gets them going. Where women, for the most part, it's like money, revenge, something like that. It falls along those lines. Yeah. And again, it's like you don't hear a lot of female serial killers because they're good at what they do. They're very good at it, and that's why you don't hear about them.
It's so creepy though. Okay. I think.
Do you want to do this?
We will. Oh, I have to give you a reading. Okay. We'll end with your reading.
Sure.
We
can go a little bit. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, guys, we're gonna end with a tarot reading because I wanted to give Adam one. Okay. Do you have something that's like pressing on your mind?
Sure.
Go ahead and shuffle that.
Yeah.
So usually, what can help you like pick a question is like just start with like a category. So like, is it about your career?
You got salt and
yeah.
What flower is that again?
It's just roses.
Rose petal. Yeah.
Alex made it for me. Alex drove away.
Oh.
She gave me a little jar.
It smells lovely.
I know, right? Oh, you place it down.
I have not done a tarot reading since college.
I mean, a lot of people will do this like for them, but I like it when like you do it. So do you have a question in mind? And it's best.
I don't have to say it out loud, right? Or do I?
It helps me. You don't have to like, you know, you don't. It doesn't like say anything about you if you ask the question. You don't have to be specific. But no yes or no questions. It should be like open ended.
Okay.
And I can help you like frame how the
So questions for you. No, questions that I have that you can answer.
Yeah. What are you asking in the cards?
Okay. Is the project I'm working on going to absorb my life?
Okay, so how can I feel more comfortable with the No. How can I maintain a healthy work-life balance?
Yeah,
how
can I maintain a healthy work and social life balance?
Yes. Okay, cool. So what you're going to do, you're going to pick 3 cards anywhere from the deck and place 1, 2, 3. So this will be past, present, future.
There we go.
Cool. All right, ready?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So your first card is the 9 of Pentacles, which is one of my favorite cards. And then this is the 8 of Wands, or as I say, 8 of dildos. It's just a bunch of wooden penises. And then the 3 of Cups, which is a very happy...
Yes.
Boop. Okay. So what I see... Okay, let me think about this. Oh, God. So the 9 of Pentacles usually represent like things like financial stuff, your career type of thing. The 9 of Pentacles is like this woman who is in her garden that she's like worked really hard to make pretty, and now she's just chilling with her birds, and she's just like she's really comfortable financially and with her career, like in that everything in that arena. And then the Eight of Wands, it's kind of like a battle card, like these are wands that are like coming at you, you know, and they're like attacking you, but like in a like you're able to hold them off. Like it's not a bad thing. And then the Three of Cups, it's a card about union. So like two becoming like one new thing. So like see these have like two little cups and then like a bigger cup. And it's like also just a very like joyous card. Like they're celebrating. They're like, yay, look how happy we are, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm seeing. Sorry. So it's like, it's like the like everything is like the way you are right now. As everything is right now, it is fine. In your future, like it's because this card is so happy, and the cups also represent like your emotions and like love and relationships and stuff. What this is telling me is that like you are gonna have balance. You're gonna have like a happy balance with your life because it's like career, relationship, friends, I guess. Yeah. Right? And so it's like, oh, you guys you're all hanging out. But the way that you get there is by
fighting off some kind of strife that's gonna
this is like one card that I don't super know. Hang on. I don't want to be wrong. I'm gonna get my book.
Okay. I'll answer some questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to know how the cops got him. I guess we're talking about the Golden State Killer. There's a great book called I'll Be Gone in the Dark that just came out recently. Michelle McNamara was the writer on it. It was Patton Oswalt's late wife. She was writing it, and then she passed away suddenly, and then Patton, along with a couple other true crime writers that she worked with over the years, finished the book. And then at that time, like just as the book was released, they caught him a week later, based off what I believe was a 23andMe like thing he sent in, and they tied the DNA back to him from his past crimes.
Whoa.
Yeah, which I think is how they got him. But read I'll Be Gone in the Dark.
Okay. So I just read what it means, and it's actually kind of crazy because it kind of like super applies. Okay, so the Eight of Wands, it's a card about like movement, about like using the momentum that you have right now. So what it's saying is like you just started this project, right? Like it's pretty new.
Yeah.
So like use that momentum, use that excitement, use that energy that you have right now for this new project, but also be careful because it says to go with the flow wherever these dildos fall, right? You lead through them. You might be required to reprioritize your schedule to accommodate other people's needs. So allow yourself to go with the flow, but also be aware of like where these things do end up falling. So it's just telling you like be cautious about like how you are scheduling your time. So it's like this project will only take over your life if you let it. So it's like just now more than ever be like the best manager of your time.
Okay.
You know, because it's like don't procrastinate, don't put off things, don't set aside times where okay, this is when I'm going to work in it, this is when I'm not, because otherwise you are going to lose your freaking mind. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know.
Great.
Make you feel any better?
Yeah. No, I do. Zoel, what Harry Potter house are you in? Ravenclaw.
You Ravenclaw?
Yeah.
Yay.
If you can tell by my obsession of studying and reading. Yeah, Ravenclaw. Yeah, this was super fun. If you ever want to just do a whole serial killers episode,
I would love to.
I'll make my top 10 list.
Yeah, no, I would love that. Would you guys like
that?
Did
Rachel Evans do anything about Panzram when she was on here?
She was on this show, but last night we did like my music lesson, but we ended up talking about serial killers. And she asked me, she was like, we did a game that she does when she goes on dates, where she tries to figure out like, okay, what serial killer would you be? My serial killer was Carl Panzram.
Carl Panzram. Panzram is super interesting. I like Carl Panzram. He's a horrific human being who, thank God, he's dead. But he's super interesting because he's not so much a serial killer as he just is like walking destruction. If you know anything about him,
she talked about him last night, but I already forgot everything.
He was just this violent man who grew up in a horrible time, and then like society, like anything bad that happened to him, he would just take it in and chew it and spit it out tenfold, and just like anyone who got in his way, he just murdered.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Like. I mean, his saying was, "My two favorite things are whiskey and sodomy."
Whoa!
So that was his bumper sticker. Like, I'd rather be sodomizing, like with a shot glass like next to it. Like, yeah, Carl Panzram, which his book is interesting because it's in his own words.
Oh, okay. What's the book called again?
I think it's Carl Panzram, a Life of Murder. Because when he was in jail, the prison guard he had told him, he's like, you should probably start writing stuff down, and he just started writing his own like life onto paper, and while in jail, and he learned, and when people like when he made this book years later, they backtracked and like researched stuff that he had said, and it had all been right. He burned down this oil rig here, he planned this, like he did this, like it all tracks.
Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah, look up Carl Panzram. Look up the Enfield Poltergeist haunting. The Black Monk of Pontefract is interesting. I'm trying to think of other things we touched on.
There was something with like weird names. It was like Magical Maleferous or something.
Oh, the Magnus Maleficarum. Which was the Hammer of Witches.
Yeah,
which
Hammer
was
of Witches.
The legal book they used to run witch trials.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
No Ouija board today, or did I miss it?
Yeah. No
Sorry,
Ouija board
I got
today.
really sidetracked talking about.
But that's
creepy
fine.
things.
I'm fine with that.
Sorry.
Yay! Okay, so before we leave, is there anything you would like to plug, like your social media stuff?
You can find me I'm on Twitter and Instagram. I try to stay off Twitter as much as possible now because it's become a not fun place.
Yeah.
Both handles for that are at @ATOM_Murray MURRAY. I'm on Instagram a good amount. I also have a Vimeo page, which you tagged my Facebook page today, which I forgot I had one.
Oh, because like I never know. I'm like, I'm gonna have a personal one, like, because I don't know, some people are.
No, I gotta go back and touch that up. Okay. That was when I was doing a YouTube channel. I don't do that anymore. But I have a Vimeo where I have 3 of my recent short films up there. I just shot a new one on Saturday.
Ooh.
So who knows when that'll be out because it's going to be in the lab for a bit. But vimeo.com/ATOMMURAY, all one word. Not a lot of people have a Vimeo account, so I can't be like, go subscribe. Like, subscribe to this like professional film website. But yeah, I'm on there if you want to see any of my stuff. I have a horror short that I directed for Loot
Is that
Crate.
up there now?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I was talking about the other one.
Oh, the Dean Corll one? Oh, Lease is up there. No, Lease. I made Lease is public today.
I like that one a lot.
It's a real bummer.
I love it. I love being loved out.
It's a real sad bummer of
really
a short
good.
film that has a ghost in it, but it's mostly about relationships.
Yeah. I like it a lot.
I made that public today. And then, yeah, I have the horror short I did for Loot Crate a while back is on there. New short coming soon. It's about pro wrestling, so if you like pro wrestling.
Oh, yeah, you should do that shoot.
I shot a wrestling short.
I couldn't make it, sorry.
You're fine. You're dead to me. It's fine.
No!
And then I'm trying to work on a short film about Dean Corll, which...
Who's that?
He was the serial killer who had the body count record in America up until John Wayne Gacy.
What? Okay.
He was operating in the early 70s in Houston, Texas, in a place called The Heights. There's a very good book about him called The Man with the Candy. Because he ran a candy company. And he was a truly horrific human being who, instead of his house, buried 27 victims in a boat shed.
Oh my god.
But he was this completely terrifying like spider. He was a spider attracting flies because he was living in a section of the country where most people were destitute or poor, and kids running away from their homes was a common thing because families back then would not be able to support all their kids. And so older kids would just take off, and they would send a letter like a year later, like, hey, I moved out to California. Here's $5 to help with the house or whatever. Like, I'm living on my own out here. And so he ran and operated pretty much a murder house of his own. And yeah, he was the body count king up until Gacy. I've
never heard of him.
Yeah, Dean Corll, Corll. And he had 2 teenage henchmen, which is the other weird kind of interesting thing about him was he had David Brooks and Elmer Wayne Henley were these 2 teenagers who helped bring boys their age to his house for parties, and then that's like it was this like spider attracting flies kind of mentality where it's like, well, we live in a shithole town, what are we gonna do? Let's go drink and party at Dean's place.
Dean.
And then Elmer Wayne Henley, one of his henchmen, is the one who ended up killing him.
Oh.
Yeah, so one of his own henchmen ended up shooting him dead. And he would have gotten away with everything he did in the aiding and abetting if he kept his mouth shut. But he liked the fame that he was getting for killing, it was like, the headline was like, Devil Slain in Houston. And he liked all this attention he was getting, and he kind of just let slip, like, oh yeah, I brought all, because they were getting paid for it. He was paying these 2 teenagers to bring him victims, essentially.
Right.
And so that will probably never see the light of day.
Yeah.
If I go to someone for funding, I'm like, hey, it's about this.
Hey, you'd be surprised.
True. Yeah. But yeah, you can find me there. ATOM_Murray on Instagram and Twitter. And yeah, that's...
Yay!
Yeah, if you have any questions about anything, feel free to tweet me.
Hit him up.
Yeah, tweet me on there. Why didn't he kill the henchman?
I mean, he didn't know that he was gonna.
He almost did. He almost killed Elmer Wayne Henley. David Brooks, who still is in jail. Both of them are still in jail. David Brooks has not talked to this day about anything about it.
He's still alive.
He's still alive. He is dead quiet about everything. He will not talk about it.
Wow.
Elmer Wayne Henley is a real chatty Cathy and loves attention and will talk to anyone who comes to him about it.
Is he alive?
He's still alive too. Because they were both in 16 and 17 or 17 and 18 in 1972. And so they're still alive. They're still in jail.
Wow. Okay.
And then, yeah, he didn't kill his henchman. He was about to when Dean Corll was also gay. And he had a wife. He had a beard. And he essentially spent all of his time with young teenage boys, 13 to 18. And I don't think it might have been a slight, this is my like armchair psychology, it might have been a slight case of pedophilia, but I also believe it was mentally stunted because he had an overbearing mother. So it was kind of just like kind of this locked in adolescence kind of mentality about things. And he wanted to be like seen as the cool kid with them, and which he never was in high school. So it was kind of like, well, now I am.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when Elmer Wayne Henley showed up to a house with his girlfriend, Dean got angry. Because it was like, you brought a girl here to our boys club. And then kind of went into, and he was also like getting unhinged towards the end of it. Like he was planning on moving to Denver. He was planning on moving out of Texas and going to Colorado. And then when Elmer and a couple other friends showed up at his house, he kind of snapped, made them all like handcuff them all, put a gun to them. And then Elmer Wayne Henley kind of like talked him off the ledge and then took the gun and shot him and killed him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and Dean Corll was like, do it then, why don't you kill me? Like screaming at me, shot him twice in the chest and killed him.
Oh my god.
That's a story for another time.
Well,
yeah. Sorry,
on that
I fell
note,
down a K-hole there.
Well, thanks for joining us,
Yeah.
everyone.
Sorry if I creeped a lot of you out.
No, they love it. That's why they're here.
Yeah, I figured.
So just like a reminder, there's no Ouija Wednesday next week because I am in Iceland.
Nice.
But the following week, I'm bringing my cousin who His mom practices Santeria.
Hell yeah.
So that'll be interesting.
Got all that dead bird talk coming up.
Yeah, but it was interesting because like I messaged her and I was like, I heard that your mom practices Santeria. Is that something that we could talk about? She's like she considers it Catholicism, but what other people call it is Santeria.
It's weird. It's an amalgamation of a lot of things.
Yeah, I'm curious to know what the hell that's about. Anyways. Let's say bye to all the people that stayed to the end. If you can read it.
Wow, my vision is terrible. Jay Belusco, SPC Moonkey. You're a spaceship, I'm assuming. Zoe M. Blood Rose.
Talon Paws,
McLuna.
Punky Spunky.
Zoel.
Show
other people who are
Universe?
Yeah, Show Universe.
Zoe M.
Zoe N. I think that's majority of people.
Yay, awesome.
Who stayed. Miratrix. There you go. Yeah, thank you. It was a blast. I love talking about weird, terrifying stuff.
Okay, oops.
Oh no!
Are you sure you want to exit?